faces. It's so good to be back and to see you guys here. I'm doing a total revamp of my life at the moment, so I'm a whole new me. And unfortunately, I can't actually remember old me. So I'm like forgetting how to interview people. I'm talking to Jim and I'm like, wait, what was I going to say? Hold on. And I've only been gone since what, last Tuesday. So, okay, we've got Jim Seybert, right? It's Seybert or Seybert?
Seybert is fine. Yeah,
Seybert.
that works. That's
Jim
what it is.
Seybert,
yeah.
And he's back again. And I've had a couple of interesting things. You're not aware of this, Jim, but I keep hearing your name. And I don't think you...
In the middle of a bad dream or what?
No, from other narrators. From other narrators. And I'll use examples. I didn't ask their permission, so I'm not going to say, oh, so-and-so said this. But one narrator, I was like blown away by their website. They have a tagline that I just like, next level. And I was like, and they were like, well, actually, Jim Seybert helped me think of that. You know, I was talking to him about this and he said this. And then another narrator, we were talking about voices, like how you describe your voice and what you do and you know, that kind of thing. And they were like, well, Jim Seybert was talking to me about this. And this happens on a regular basis. I don't know if you realize how many people you touch. And then I had an interesting instance where you did it to me, where and you didn't even know it. And it kind of changed the course. I was doing 2 nonfiction books. One I thought would be easy because it's easy. And the next one is 8 hours of footnotes. That's it.
Right.
It's one of those, I can't find the actor. I couldn't find at the time, you know, I couldn't find the actor's voice because it was just facts, ma'am. Very strong facts, footnotes, quotations. It is the whole thing. And I thought, wow, how am I going to do this? And I think I might have whined just a tiny bit on the message to Jim. And what was your quote? What was your quote? I can't remember now. I put it on the video for the call.
Yeah, this was just recently. It's kind of like, you know, accept the role, take the stage, and you know, and do what you do. And that's a hell of a lot easier to say than it is to do. But just, you know, that's who we are. That's what we do.
And but that attitude, mind shift, I've got to tell you, I started that book and I'm finding it easier than the easy one because the language is a challenge to me. And that interests me because if as long as my interest is held, then I'm fine. I can get into a flow. And I'm finding it really easy. And if I hadn't gone in with that mindset, because of what you'd said was front and center of my mind, and it made me think of just how much, and I'm interested in your opinion about this, because you do so much nonfiction, how much the stories that we have and the things we're saying in our mind dictate our approach to the book and the easiness / hardness of each book.
I had an hour-long conversation yesterday with Andy Arndt about this, about how much of me shows up in a nonfiction book that I'm doing, and very specifically, we're doing. I was working with her on some performance issues, and the book is one I completed a while back about a brutal battle in Vietnam, and it was. It really got me. I mean, those are my contemporaries that were there. That was my age.
Yeah.
And frankly, at the end of every chapter, there was a kind of an epilogue to every single chapter. I had to read the name, the birth date, and the date of death of every single guy that died in that chapter. And there were some of them where there, you know, like 18, 20, 30 people, you know, and so we were talking about how much of me and it's hard to define. It's hard for me to define. And I felt awful. I felt horrible reading that book because there was in every paragraph, so-and-so stood up and took a bullet, and so-and-so, so-and-so was asleep and a mortar dropped right on him and he died. And it was
what you were doing right there, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's so important right here, is what they say about narrators holding the space for the emotions and feelings and thoughts that other people can't handle, and we're handling it for them. That's what you did, isn't it?
Yeah, and you get to the end and you're just drained.
Yeah.
But what Andy was helping me see was that although I was feeling it, I wasn't sharing that feeling honestly enough with the listener. I mean, I think I did a really good job with the script and all, but if I go back and listen to it, it's like, okay, I held back a little bit when so-and-so was killed. I didn't share that. I didn't emote that quite as much as I probably could have. Maybe to protect myself. Maybe because, and I think this is a big part of it, the book was so full. I mean, like, not every page, but almost every page, people were dying. This was a horrible, the battle at Play Me, if anybody's familiar, and in Vietnam, and maybe because I didn't want the whole book to be, at this intense level of death and destruction and bloodshed. I wanted to give it some depth and some and some melody line and whatnot. So instead of just every single thing being so intense, I tried to roll it back a little bit. But your question is a good one. How much of ourselves do we bring to to a nonfiction book?
Yeah.
And you can't help but bring part of yourself. What I love about doing nonfiction, I tell people, I like to do nonfiction because for the brief period of time that I'm doing it, I get to be that smart. I get to be the smartest guy in the room when it comes to whatever the topic is. The book I'm doing right now is a book about the founder of Hobby Lobby, and regardless of his personal politics, which I'm not in line with, he's a brilliant business person, and he cares about his employees immensely. He's one of the first people in the country to raise his base salary to $18.50 an hour at retail, which is kind of unheard of. But I've worked in retail, so I bring and I've managed people, so I bring myself to that. But at the same time, I don't want to comment from my own perspective. It's the author's perspective that I have to share with people. So take the stage, play the role.
Yeah, and remove a lot of the extra stories sometimes.
Which is hard for me because I love to tell stories.
Yeah, you do. So you do a lot. So do you know that you're helping so many people when you give advice and you listen to other people? I don't understand how you find so much time. I can't tell you how many people have said, oh, Jim Seybert helped me with that. And it's not like, oh, Jim Seybert just mentioned it on a post on Facebook. You're having actual real life conversations with these people. How are you doing this?
Well, it's a lonely freaking business.
Yeah.
I mean, our profession is really lonely, and I'm really introverted. I don't do well in group situations. I thrive being on stage because there's a separation between me and the audience. I loved being on the radio when I was, because I wasn't right there one-on-one. But so group things like mixers, and we had an APA mixer a couple of weeks ago down in LA. I went, but I find myself just visiting one-on-one with somebody. As soon as someone else walks over and it becomes a group, I I've got to get a drink, or I need to go to the, to the toilet or something. I excuse myself. So I love, having quickie conversations with people, on FaceTime or whatever, phone calls. And even sometimes some of the conversations are just by text, Facebook Messenger or text messaging or whatever. But no, it kind of blows me away that you say that people are, mentioning my counsel or mentorship or something. That's not my intent.
You're changing, you're literally affecting the audiobook industry. It happens so often. I'm not kidding you. Yeah. And it's okay. Not in a way of, oh, Jim is coaching everyone. It's, oh, my friend Jim told me this. Right. It happens like on a weekly basis. So you have a large reach. I don't think you realize it.
Yeah, and I don't want to coach. That's
I don't either.
I've thought, I think about it every now and then. It's like, oh, but I don't know that I have the personal discipline. I mean, like, for instance, I went through Sean Pratt's massive program. At the time, it was only about 12 lessons.
Yeah.
It took me 3 years to get through it. He'll tell that story every now and then when he wants to make fun of me. It took me a really long time to get through those lessons. But there's a very distinct discipline that he brings to that. Every week there's a different lesson, and other coaches that I work with have a discipline of, here's what we're gonna work on. I don't have that personal discipline. I see myself more as just a friend or an advisor, maybe mentor, but even mentor brings with it some responsibility that I don't know I'm willing to accept. We'll chat, and I'll suggest some ideas, and you can either like them or not like them. You can use them or not use them. No skin off my nose.
You're not selling them. Okay, let's talk about life, Jim.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, we all have
the meaning of life. The meaning of life, by the way, is 42. Whatever that
42.
means.
Well, I'm going to actually more detailed than that. Okay. We all have our thing, right? We all have our Don Quixote windmill that we fight. That our entire life, it just keeps coming back and we can't get it, or we eventually got it, but it was hard won and we learned a lesson from it. Do you have your windmill?
No,
if it's too personal to share here, I totally understand.
No, personal discipline is really difficult for me. I'm one of those people who every new idea is awesome. I don't know if you've ever done the personality test called Strengths Finder. But my number one strength in Strengths Finder is ideation. I love new ideas, and I will follow a new idea, and so just immediately until it runs out, or I'm bored, and I get bored very quickly. So focus, attention to detail, those are all albatrosses, I guess, Don Quixote things. Diet and exercise. I'm a type 2 diabetic, so I do pretty good with controlling it, but occasionally I will fall off the wagon and have to get back on, and it's not easy. So sticking with things that I've made a commitment to, is difficult, and which is weird, because you end up getting a 15 or 16, or I think the longest. I have not yet done a 20-hour book. I mean, some people have done 40-hour books, and and that type of thing. But about halfway through, just about any book you give me, I don't care how long it is, about halfway through, I'm ready for it to be over.
I've done a couple of almost 20, and I thought I was going to die.
Well, even a 5 or 6, even a 5 or 6 hour book, most authors, I think most authors repeat a little bit. They'll which they should. They tell you what they're going to tell you, then they tell you what they told you. That kind of thing. But sometimes, about halfway through, I said to my wife a couple of weeks ago or books ago, I can't remember how long it was. I said, I don't know if this guy had a copy editor, because I'm reading exactly the same lines in this chapter that I did 3 chapters ago. And I went back and did a little word search on iAnnotate, and sure enough, they were cut and pasted.
It's like when it takes 20 hours, or it's like a 13-hour book, it could have been a 5-hour book.
Well, and I get bored and I want to move on.
Well, I've got an idea though, but something, because I used to be like that, and I did find one trick, and I hesitate to say it publicly, because when I say it, I get a lot of shocked faces. To me, it seems like so obvious and straight. I get a lot of those, the kind of face you would get if you told them you were recording in a closet, that kind of face,
right.
Oh my God, right. But if I got a book that I know isn't going to be I'm not going to say boring, because of course I'm an artist, I love everything I do, but if I get a book that I feel isn't going to hold my attention as much, I will combine my schedule so that I'm doing half the time with that book in the morning and half the time with a book I really like as a treat in the afternoon.
I've never done that. I don't know if that would, if it works for you, that's awesome. I don't know that it does work for me. I get into a mindset when I do these military books, the Vietnam books. And this is an idea that came to me from Kimberly Wetherell, so I'm not going to claim this one. This is Kimberly's. But when I do a Vietnam book, for instance, I have T-shirts that I've purchased from a U.S. military supply house.
Yeah,
and I wear those.
Yeah.
I play
you cosplay your books,
Revival.
Basically.
I do. I play Run Through the Jungle from Creedence, really loud before I go in there. And if I did that, and then I went over and did this book on retail merchandising, I I don't know that my brain could handle that. But something you said just a minute ago, you said something about a book doesn't grab your attention, and I think I know we've all been there, because I've been there.
I'll be more blunt. If it's a nonfiction, that's it.
Yeah.
If it's a nonfiction.
See, that happens. And my job as a narrator is not to love the book.
Yeah.
Again, my job is to accept the role, take the stage, and Heller did this. Johnny did this for me. I had a book on Richard Nixon that was a very fascinating book, actually, when you finally got into it. But it's pretty dry. The fellow that wrote it was a bureaucrat, and there wasn't a lot of excitement in this book. It was just, here's the facts, ma'am, And I was just having trouble while I was doing prep. So I engaged Johnny, and I said, let's do a few minutes on the phone, and I'll read you some, and you can just give me some little directive skill. And he said, in Johnny's inimitable thing, Jim, he says, there are people who will really be fascinated by this material.
Yeah.
There are people out there that will love this material. You talk to them. And that really helped me too, with books that are not as engaging. Somebody's going to be engaged with this.
Yeah.
The people that don't care about the topic aren't going to buy it. They're not going to listen to it. So who cares what they think? I would never buy it. I would never listen to it. So who cares what I think? But there's a group of people who are going to be really fascinated with that material.
Yeah.
And my job as an actor / narrator is to give them the best performance I can. And it's a command performance thing. You could be just bored shitless while you're reading the thing.
Yeah.
But the talent, the experience that you bring to the table is to rise to the occasion.
I did.
Everybody knows.
I did learn a boundary. You know how you're supposed to have boundaries. Turned out I don't have a lot of boundaries. I didn't realize that till I became a narrator. But I did recently turn a book down because I did a part, you know, to do the audition and everything. And it was kind of an almost in the bag kind of thing, but I went to look up the woman's name to make sure I pronounced it properly, the writer. And I found a whole bunch of anti-vax stuff. And not to get into politics, but I'm firmly, if you don't get your vaccine, you're going to give it to me, and then I'm going to miss a week of work. So I'm firmly, and it was a step too far for me. The girl that regularly does gruesome thrillers where people are mutilated in horrible ways. But I think we all have, or hurting animals is a hard thing for me. Yeah. Or, you know, or even there's a new Netflix show about a serial killer. And I saw an interesting post before we logged on here, somebody saying that the family members of the victims hadn't wanted the film to be made. And they started the film off kind of like looking into the serial killer's childhood. So like understanding why they came to where and this was like a famous, really grisly serial killer. So it's like some things, I think you're right. I think up to the point once you've taken it on, it's your responsibility. You suck it up, you get there and you believe in it and you deliver 100%. And it's also your responsibility not to take it on in the beginning if you think you can't do that.
Yeah, I have people, I mean, I do one of the things that I tell casting directors, and that is my kind of one, a little bit of my focus, is that I like to do controversial books. To me, publishing has always been about the marketplace of ideas, and we don't just publish. I worked in marketing on the publishing side for a long time. We don't just publish books that we believe in. We publish well-researched and well-written books, regardless of their content. Now, we can draw the line. I draw the line at hate speech and that type of thing. But I've did a book about 6 months ago that was critical of CRT. I looked through it. There wasn't anything. There was some opinion that I disagreed with, but there wasn't anything in there that I saw as problematic. And I narrated it, and I have people tell me, "Gosh, I didn't realize that you were so anti-CRT." I'm not, but as an actor, I brought it to the table. So yeah, we draw lines.
Yeah, see, some things, because if it's going to do harm, I felt that the bent of this other book, I'm not afraid of subjects. I did a massive one on, because Lauren said this, the school shooting. I did one, Stop the Killing, and it was all in depth, in detail, and it's reality, and it's so hard, but it's not, it's helping. Do you know what I mean? It's putting it out there. It's helping.
Yeah, right. It's a marketplace of ideas, and that's, and I think that's, if we get to the point where we are policing the content of published material,
but I'm not, but the thing is, I believe that I want this person to get their book done, of course, because that's free speech. Right. But I just don't think I can be a voice for something I hate and detest that much.
Right. No, I agree.
My own religion, funny story, my own religion that like I grew up with, I'm not like I'm probably well, no, I won't even say what I am. But yeah, I'm not the religion that my parents are that I grew up with. And I did a book about that religion. And by the end of the book, I was, because you grow up with something. It's like, oh, I was born such and such. But nope, by the end of the book, I'm like anti that religion. But I still did it. I did it respectfully, But do you not have to stop yourself and make yourself like the author and the message when it's a book that's completely opposite what you believe?
I find myself remember I said I'm an ideator, so any new idea that comes along, I'll latch onto. A lot of times in books of content that I disagree with, I will find myself going, well, maybe I ought to explore that a little bit. And then, and then the real me kicks back in when the microphone is off and I go back to my, hateful, terrible, awful self. But yeah, I do. I mean, I like this the book I'm doing right now on Hobby Lobby. I've never really liked their political stand. But man, this guy, this fellow, his name is David Green. I'll mention the author. He's 80 years old. He founded Hobby Lobby years ago in the 70s. This guy has a tremendous heart for employees. And it's not like he's trying to force them into his religious thinking. If what he is writing is true, and I'm not doubting that it is, he's very laid back as far as that goes. You don't have to be his religion to work for him, and that. I have a different perspective for the guy, and I wouldn't, and I wouldn't have a different perspective for him if I hadn't done the book. I would never pick the book up and read it because it's not a topic that interests me. But I was assigned it, and it is very well written, and yeah, so I do end up kind of building an affinity with the author. Yeah. I mean, that author is just a character. Nonfiction, people, so afraid of, I might try nonfiction one of these days.
I don't get people that say that. What is it they're afraid of?
I don't know. All it is to me is it's a big ass monologue. It's a 13-hour monologue of the main character.
To me, I'm playing the writer telling a story.
Yeah, and you don't have to do voices. You don't have to worry about all that character shit.
Yeah, that's more fun. I prefer the characters, but
sometimes I'd like to, but yeah, you don't even have to do that. So yeah, don't be afraid of it. Just jump in there.
Yeah, I guess my voice has gravitas. So I've been getting, when I do get nonfiction, it's like serious medical books or like tragedy. So I'm not complaining because they're exciting.
It's work. It's work. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I have had steady work for a long time, thanks to books.
Yeah. Well, also thanks to your professional attitude.
It's work. I did a book recently written by a Brit, and there were some phraseologies in there that were definitely not American. And I realized that 3/4 of the way through the book, that anyone listening to really paying attention would go, this guy's not British, the narrator. And so I was chatting with, I'll name drop. I was chatting with Kyle Tate, and I said, Kyle, I'm feeling kind of weird because this book was written by a Brit. And I almost feel like I should do the whole thing in a British accent, which I couldn't pull off. Basically said, don't fret, it's a paycheck. And they asked you to do it. And it was a competitive audition, and they picked me. So and they obviously know I'm not British and I don't sound British. But I love that. It's a paycheck. And that's not to say that Kyle or anybody that says that is, what's the mercenary, I mean, but it is, it's what we do for a living. We read books for a living.
So you did it. I love that you did the audition, put yourself in the game, because who knows, they could have been looking for an English or an American for years. You got it.
Yeah. And they didn't ask. So, I mean, I just, that's one of the things I like.
Did you audition for it?
But they didn't ask for a special voice. They just, here's the script. Please do this. That's one of the things I like about nonfiction. I've dabbled in a little bit of fiction, but it's a hell of a lot of work. I have tremendous admiration for people that can manage dozens and dozens of different voices.
Yeah.
The problem is I'll start with one I'll start, Irish, and about halfway through the second paragraph, I'm now in some other part of the UK. I can't hold it in. And I know if I worked at it, I probably could.
Yeah.
But I'm old and lazy, and I'll just stick with the Jim Seybert voice. It seems to work pretty well.
But I think,
right.
But what you said about being old and this, all joking aside, there's only so much time in the day, and don't we have to just choose what we want to, like, pick our battles?
Yeah. And at this point in my life, I don't need to, and I really don't want to work that hard. I work hard at what I do, a very professional approach to what I do. But you're right, you use the word boundaries in a different sense, but it's the same thing. You've got to have boundaries. You can't. I don't want to do 50 books a year. My God, I don't know what I don't know when I would have time to do anything else. And I like, as you can see, this is the backyard. I like sitting on the deck.
That's not a real backyard. I thought that was a Zoom backdrop.
Oh, no.
Oh my gosh, you're not disappearing. That's a real backyard. Is it hot over there?
It's probably 65 today. Because I'm probably right behind me. A mile is the beach. It's the Pacific Ocean. I was toying with doing this from the beach because of the intro video that you did.
That would have been cool.
That had, and so I went to the beach. I walk every day down on the boardwalk on the beach, and I was going to, but there's a big surf competition this weekend. It's a longboard surf competition. And all of the setup and everything is going on where I would have been sitting, and it would have been too distracting. So you just get this backyard, which is a bunch of oak trees.
I can't remember where are you?
Pismo Beach.
Oh, must be nice.
Yeah, it's awful. We are halfway between LA and San Francisco. It's called the Central Coast, about 90 minutes north of Santa Barbara. And,
yeah, you got the good end of the stick. I'm from Fresno. We didn't have a beach.
Well, all of your Fresnoids, as we call them, come here on the weekends. They get on Highway 46 or Highway 41, and they come here for the weekend. So that or Bakersfield, we call them the sand people. They come over and hang out on the sand. So from Memorial Day through Labor Day, we stay out of the beach area and we just leave it for them.
Yeah, stay away from that.
Now that Labor Day has passed, I go down every morning about 9:30 or 10 after a couple of 3 hours in the studio, and I walk on the pier and grab a cup of coffee and come home and then do whatever else I do. And I love that.
Wait,
I don't want to
after how many hours? What time do you go in the studio in the morning?
7.
Oh, you're one of them.
So I'll go 7 to 10, 7 to 9:30.
Wow.
I could go longer.
How is your voice? What time do you wake up in the morning, if you don't mind me asking?
5. Well, 5:01 actually.
What time do you go to sleep to wake up at?
10, 10:30, 11 o'clock.
Wow.
I get up that early because my wife does. She's a chief financial officer for a school district, and so she goes to work at 7. So as soon as she goes to work, I'm down in the studio. I get up at 5 along with her, and take the dog out to pee, and then I make her lunch, and put it bag up her lunch, and get her an iced coffee. We make iced coffee for breakfast, and then when she leaves, I go down and record, and then I walk. If I don't get it all recorded by the time I need to walk, I'll come back and pick that up, 11 to noon, something like that. But I'm very seldom in the studio afternoon. Afternoons sometimes are for pickups. those lovely things that we do. I actually like doing them. And then, dinner prep and going to the grocery and all that in the afternoon. So where would I find time to do another whole book at the same, twice as many books? I wouldn't have the time.
I'm fascinated by this. And, oh, you shouldn't have started this, Jim. This is my favorite subject. And even Lauren is piped in saying she's up at 4:40 a.m. for group fitness class. Seriously? It's
like, oh my God.
I have this really rich nightlife.
This person is.
Do you guys not watch Netflix?
Jesus. 4:40 in the morning to fucking exercise?
Exactly. So this brings me to my question. Your routine, you have a very set routine, right? And
because
I
Daniela,
love. But did you do it on purpose, or did it evolve on its own?
If I didn't have the routine, I wouldn't do it. I would there's a shiny thing over there.
But how did you, I know, but how did you make yourself start doing the routine? Because I'm the shiny thing person.
I like to hit, I don't like to be, deadlines scare the crap out of me. I am almost always a day or two ahead of when something is due.
Yeah.
Because I don't like the pressure. The exercise thing goes back to, my health condition. I have to walk. If I don't walk, and if I don't exercise, I can eat very little, because I've got to keep my carb count down because of glucose. So I walk, and that's kind of forced me. I enjoy it now that once you get into it.
How long did it take you to get into it, though?
Actually not that long, because when you're measuring glucose, we don't need to get into this thing completely. It doesn't need to be a medical discussion, but when you're measuring your glucose and you walk enough, you immediately see it coming down, and that's a good thing. And you want it to stay down. So it was like cause and effect. Exercise to exercise, no way.
Yeah, Kim said the same thing. She walks every morning to help her glucose as well. Yeah, and I think you guys might have a point, because I'm taking a medication starting tonight that you can't eat 2 hours before you've taken the medicine. So unless I'm going to be like taking the medicine, I'm going to have to stop eating at night. So no more snacking in front of the TV. And suddenly it seems easy. But like when it's your health, it's like I've got no choice. Right. But when it was just I've got to be skinny, it wasn't so easy not to eat.
Yeah, exactly. So it's cause and effect.
Yeah.
It's funny. I'm the shiny person. Let's follow that. The ideation, but structure works well for me. Structure works. I give myself breaks from recording. I'll record 3 or 4 books, boom, 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 boom. And then I'll schedule myself off. And I have to actually put it in there, because that way when somebody sends me an email, say, hey, can you do this book? No, I'm sorry, I can't do that week. If that weren't in there, I would just accept the book and I would have burnout. Yeah. So I took a week off, went to Yosemite, did some hiking there, and that was a couple weeks ago. Then the week after, I'm supposed to start recording again. Well, I get this kidney stone, and it's like this is turning into the Jim's medical maladies program.
No, it's not. But the thing is, every single person's piping in, because we all have the same stuff. Not only that, we're all going to show up on your doorstep because we all want to have your life.
There you go. So I couldn't work for a week. And I was going crazy because my structure was busted. And that's a very weird thing for me, because I've never really enjoyed structure.
Yeah.
But I've kind of gotten into this rhythm: record in the mornings, make the breakfast, make the lunch, record, walk, do admin stuff. I do a little prep in the afternoon, because I always prep tomorrow's, when we're done here, I'll be prepping tomorrow's pages. in the
You
book.
made me
So
realize
yes,
something though, Jim, because what you said, because when you're children, you have structure, right? Because children have routine, whatever it is. You go to
yeah,
bed at a certain time. I mean, you eat pretty much 3 meals a day. You wake up on time to go to school, so you have to wake up early enough. You go to bed early because you have to wake up for school, and you get exercise because you go out and get fresh air and it's good for you. Maybe kids these days don't, but we did. And it's a very good point, because when I had those dreaded office jobs and then like I'd do acting on the side or whatever, I felt so sorry for myself because I have to do 2 jobs. I have to wake up and sell my soul to this horrible place. But since I've become freelance, although I love it, I'm getting all the things I love, work in my pajamas, dress up in funny outfits, talk to myself all day, never have to do anything I don't want to do. I'm worse off by far because I'm not forced to I can't take care of myself the way you would a 7-year-old. I can't eat 3 meals a day. I do brush my teeth, but that's pretty much the only thing,
right.
but you've given yourself that, although it's for your health, but you've given yourself what you give a child, a
Yeah,
healthy routine.
and and another part of it, you mentioned brushing your teeth, and
I do that.
dental dental care is so important because that's our instrument, and so when you think about it, my walking every day is helping my performance because it's giving me greater lung capacity. It's giving me more. I bought one of these little breather exerciser things. I think I posted on it on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. And that's helping me to expand my lung capacity so I can read longer sentences. And God knows nonfiction authors are paid extra if they can, for extra long sentences. There's just something about nonfiction authors that makes them want to write really long sentences.
Yeah, like one sentence a chapter sometimes.
Oh gosh, yes, and it's which I love that because it's a challenge. Okay, how do I make this? How do I make this work? Yeah, taking care of yourself is just if for no better motivation than to help you perform better, there's a reason. There's a reason right there.
I'm always instant gratification though. If one thing happens and I get behind, like today, I was going to walk. I've done really well. I walked one day this week, but now I have to finish this book. And the problem is it's nonfiction. So I made myself give myself 1.5 the time it would take me to do for a fiction book, because it's just, I'm slower at nonfiction. And I was smart this time I did it. But the problem is my brain still knows that at a push, I can do 2 hours a day. And now my brain knows that at a real push, if I'm willing to get really sick, I can wake up at 5 a.m. and do 4 finished hours and just be in hell. So when I start the book on the day it's scheduled to start, my brain knows you don't really have to start today. I know she put it in the schedule, but you can make it up in the end, and then you can just have a lovely day off.
Yeah, I do that. I schedule myself. I use a gosh, I can't remember where Jack DeGolia showed it to me. It's an analyzing tool that you take a portion of the script and it's an online tool, and you put in this thing, and it'll give you the grade reading level for that material. Now, if it's a higher grade reading level, it's going to take you longer to narrate it because it's denser, it's more academic, more scholarly. And so I run that through there, and it gives me an idea of how difficult or easy this book is going to be to read. And then I give myself, 30 pages a day. See, I don't go by finished hours. I go by number of pages. I divide the total. It's a 300-page book. I've got 10 days. I got to do 30 pages a day. And I know that I can do a certain number of pages based on difficulty, and I'll build myself a couple of those days that you're talking about in there. Fuck it, I don't want to do anything today days, and I'll build them in.
Into your schedule for the week, because like miraculously after 7 years, I still genuinely think I'm never going to want to have one of those days again. I still think like tomorrow, along with stopping eating sugar, I'm not going to do that anymore.
I am so focused on doing a good performance.
Yeah.
That I don't want to do I don't want to have a day where I have 4 hours.
Right.
4 finished hours, because I know those last 45 minutes I'll be ripping off the listener. It just won't be as good. Now the funny thing for me is that I do early mornings, and part of that I think is because I was a morning DJ and a morning news announcer, so I've always been up using my voice early in the morning.
Good point.
The funny thing is, I can then go back in late in the evening, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and I can roll out a good finished hour if I need to. And it's just, it's weird. I can't do it in the afternoon. If you had me right now, it's almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. If you had me right now go in and do an hour's worth of narration, I couldn't. I'd be fumbling all over myself. It would be punch and roll.
I think that's hormones. I think that a lot of that is like hormones. No, but not just your hormones, all of our hormones. There's the Huberman podcast. He talks about different things you can do can affect the different chemical reactions in your brain, right? So if you want to be able to do such and such type of work at such and such time of day, you have to expose yourself to sunlight. There's different ways you can tweak it. I'm not interested in that because I'm incapable of following anything with consistency like that. But the takeaway I got from that is we all know ourselves, right? So yourself where I cannot record after 7 o'clock at night. I just cannot do it. The part of my brain that is concentrating and acting, I cannot. Okay, let's not lie, really after 6, but 7, whatever I need, but I can edit, or I can do admin, or I can do a different type of work. I think we all have times of the day that our brains want to do different.
Yeah. Know yourself. Know yourself. When I was in corporate, when I was, wore a suit and went into an office, I would tell people I'm better in the morning. If you want to have a conversation with me where we talk about substantive issues, let's do it in the morning. Can I do it in the afternoon? Yeah, I'm intelligent. I'll give you everything I've got at 2:30 in the afternoon. I have more to give in the morning.
Yeah.
I had a boss
you
who was
saying
just the opposite.
rip off the listener is what I would be doing in the evenings if I tried to record at night.
Yeah.
You had a boss. Sorry, I interrupted. You had a boss.
No, I had a boss who was polar opposite of that. His greatest ideas would come about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he would come marching into my office with this great idea at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Hey, Jimmy, we got a blah, 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 blah. And finally, either he looked at me or I looked at him. I'd been working for him for quite a while. And it was like, man, what's the matter? Are you tired? What? He said, Steve, I'm just so much better in the morning. Really? This was a concept. He just, he says, what time do you get to work? I said, I'm usually here 7:30, 8 o'clock. Oh, wow. Okay. He says, well, I can't get here that early, but I got a really good idea. I'll bring it in the morning. And man, what a difference that made. And again, it goes back to knowing yourself.
Yeah.
So know when you can do the best performance. Now there's some people, narrators, who can just sit down. They don't warm up. They just sit down in the booth and they just go all the time. More power to them. Love them. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I've got to do a specific warm up, before I start, get my brain in the right order.
My voice is fine. My brain is not going to play tag until
I make a lot of enunciation mistakes and stumble over my tongue if I don't.
Because you're not paying attention. I chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo for 15 minutes and I scroll through Pinterest. And it makes my soul happy.
Pinterest. Okay.
Yeah, I look at fall things and colors and beautiful things, and it puts me in a calm mood.
Okay. Again, get back to Kimberly. She suggested I do modern Major General. I recite. I don't sing it. I recite Modern Major General faster and faster and faster, and then I'll do it instead of a patter. I'll do it as if I'm really explaining it.
I like
and
that.
And then when I'm done with that, I kick on the recorder, the DAW, and I sing harmony to myself. I'll sing, this morning I sang a chorus of Amazing Grace. So I'll sing the melody, and then I'll bring down another track and I'll sing the bass, and then I'll bring down another track, sing the alto, then bring down another track and sing the tenor. And what that does is, it's enjoyable because I love the sound of harmony. But what that does is it reminds my voice, my mouth, and my brain that we need to cooperate, and we need to, because we need to hit the right notes to make this happen and to make this sound right. And then I erase it, and I was saving them for a while. It's like, what the hell? And then I clear my throat, take a drink of water, and close the door to the booth, and strap in, baby. Here we go.
I think you should coach people. Oh. Okay. Kim wants to know, how many people were part of the morning show, or were you solo? And where was your favorite remote? What's your favorite the remote going out? Yeah, you told us going out to.
Yeah. I hate them.
Kim
hated
knows
remotes.
The lingo though.
Absolutely hated those. Jim, you get to do another remote. Oh, shit.
I don't see why though, because you seem like you'd have fun just meeting people.
No, God, no. They're the audience. As long as they stay on the other side of the stage, as long as they're down there, as long as they're away, it's all right. If I have to meet them face to face and have small talk with them, no, and they're not horrible people. They're, love them. That's, they're the reason I got paid. I just don't want to. I have nothing to chat with. That just wasn't anything. And I've got friends in radio that absolutely love remotes. They just love going out and meeting the people. Was it a team? It was not a team. Usually it was me. When I was a DJ, it was me and the person that did news, and maybe the person that did sports. I had a couple of characters I would bring in that I would work on. But this was the 70s and the 70s and early 80s.
Was it music?
Yeah, rock and roll. Yeah.
Kim says, and they want to keep talking to you when the song is ending and you have to go live.
Oh yeah. They want to keep talking to you. They, it's like, yeah. And then I grew up a little bit. I went into sales because you can't make any money as a disc jockey. I sucked at sales, selling radio time. And then I found a buddy of mine was at a station that was news and talk. And he said, hey, would you like to do this talk show? And that was awesome. I mean, it was 4 hours of chatting with people and interviewing people and interviewing people about.
What were you talking about?
Politics, local politics, national politics. I got book authors on. Probably I'm trying to think the guy's name. Tom Peters. I interviewed Tom Peters when his very first book came out. I don't remember what the title was, but and folks like that. And I also got to interview some pretty significant politicians. It was here in California, and that was fun. But no, it was never a team thing like they do now. I know, Morris, Johnny Fever. Remember Johnny Fever from WKRP in Cincinnati? Was kind of that kind of thing.
That's so cool. I always dreamt, those late night shows, there was a woman, she's very conservative, but yeah, long story short, there was this woman that used to give advice. People would call in with like problems. Oh, yeah. Schlesinger or something.
Yeah.
I listened to her like when I was like really young, like I'd listen to her like when I go to sleep at night. I always thought that's the perfect job, like being
Dr.
Frasier.
Laura.
Yeah. Dr. Laura, that was her. Yeah. I could do that.
Despicable person.
Yeah. See, I didn't want to say it. I'm glad it's not just me.
Oh God. No, I finally got off of that when I was tired of having to have opinions on everything.
Really?
Some things I just didn't have an opinion on. Some things was like I was lukewarm or I was in the middle. And if you're a talk show host and you're in the middle of
You can't be in the
you know,
middle.
people they will run from you. And so I got tired, and I think my wife also got tired of when someone say, "Are you Jim Seybert's wife?" And she would say, "Yeah," and she'd have to kind of back away because she wasn't sure if they were going to spit at her or shake her hand or something like that. So anyway,
Okay,
but
Jim.
Yeah.
Very, very, very important question.
Okay.
For the YouTube audience that's going to be watching this in the next 60 years, what
Okay.
would you like to leave them with? And by the way, I think you should be coaching, because that routine thing, I want like an hour with Jim Seybert to give me hacks on my routine and business ideas. And I think you're missing a trick. Emily Lawrence does that kind of thing. You tell her what you want to talk about and you have an hour of her time and she brainstorms everything she can do to help you. You'd be amazing.
Yeah. Heck of a way to make money, I guess. What do I want? What do I want to leave with people?
Yeah, or best advice, something you've learned, something you'd want them to remember, if anything, from this call, one thing you'd like them to take away from this call.
One of my favorite, this is not spur of the moment. This is something that usually when people ask me, one of my favorite quotes from all time is from MASH. Dr. Stanley, who was the psychiatrist on MASH, standing in the OR in Korea when bombs are falling all over the place and they're saving people's lives on the tables. Sydney, not Stanley, Sydney. Sydney walks in and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, here's my advice. Pull down your pants and slide on the ice." There's just something about that. There's just something about that has always made sense to me. It's like, no matter what is going on, just stop and say, fuck this. I'm going to do what I do, and that's it. And that's not a way of saying be rude to other people or be disrespectful or ignore other people. It's just,
get on with it.
Life, just get on with it.
Yeah.
Pull down your pants and slide on the ice. I love that. I've got that as a picture that I will occasionally use as my Facebook, whatever that thing is called. Not my profile picture, but the other thing, the background.
Yeah, I love that.
I just love that. Yeah,
I think we've got the heading for the show.
Here's my advice. Pull down your pants and slide on the ice.
I like that. I like that. And that's that goes very well with my favorite one, was that never drink yellow snow. But but yours has more real life implications, I think. But the thing is, you put it into action, because as I said, your one little comment on Messenger changed my mindset 180 degrees and changed that entire book for me. Just
Good.
Because of one statement you made, not even meaning, and one comment well placed can change everything, can't it?
Yeah.
And you make
or
them
misplaced
people.
Yeah, or misplaced. I mean, you have to be careful. I think that's the other thing. Being a coach carries a tremendous amount of responsibility. And I like I said, I engaged Andy yesterday for an hour, and I was thinking about some of the things that she told me about my performance that I would have never noticed if I were in her shoes. It just takes a special person to do that. All the people, all the coaches that you work with, they're just special people that's why I get, and boy, this we could go on and on. That's why I just get so upset when I see people that have done half a dozen books of, oh, you know, they're now going to start giving advice and coaching. It's like, oh my God.
And I'm sure there's a lot of great stuff on TikTok, but there's a lot of not great stuff on TikTok. And I've seen new people posting on Facebook that they learned how to do this on TikTok and then come out with the most outrageous, ridiculous advice for narrating an audiobook. And I'm like, and you learned that in what? A 3-minute clip on a social media platform? Did you?
Yeah, we could go on and on with that, right? Forever.
But the thing is, the thing is, I think, yes, it's a lot of responsibility. And I mean, I wouldn't want to be a coach. I'm uncomfortable with it. I wouldn't want to do it. But I think there's no discounting that your words well placed have made way more than a ripple in this industry. Well, and it's
that's humbling. I mean, that's, all joking aside, that's humbling. That's
and it's like, and I'm not joking. I'm literally constantly have people say, and it's always after I've said they'd done something amazing, and oh, that's because of Jim Seybert. So they've actioned something.
You all of these people ought to send me a goddamn royalty check. That's what ought to happen. All
but
of these people,
they're your friends. They're your friends, is what it is.
To hell with them. I'm going to start sending bills. You want to chat with me? Damn it. You know,
I'll send you a royalty check for the comment. You helped me on that book because you really did.
Here's my Venmo. You know, there we go.
Because I was going in with a bad attitude, wasn't I? I was going in. Remember what my post was? Oh my God, I have to do the book from hell. And now I'm like, it's quite enjoying it.
And you know, and then we have to go here pretty soon. But the thing is, I can scold you for having that kind of an attitude, or I can, you know, do a little pithy reply to your post, but I get the same, I have the same attitudes. You know, there's times when I like, oh shit, I don't want to do this. I feel awful. I don't want to do this. So that's why
you didn't make a condescending, you didn't mansplain me. You basically told me what I already knew. It's what I knew. We all know that. We all know we have to, you know, accept the challenge and shine.
Right. It just, what we need to do is pull down our pants and slide on the ice.
Yep. That's basically what you said. I think I probably wouldn't have understood that without context if you'd replied with that.
Anyway, I've got to go. I need to go to the grocery store. I'm going to the dispensary to pick up some little Happy Chewies, and
I hope you have a wonderful day. We're now imagining your lovely routine, which we're all very envious of.
Right.
And thanks for taking the time to meet with us. It's been lovely.
This is awesome. This is one of my favorite things to do.
Well, the video will be out in 2 weeks, guys. Okay. Thank you, Jim. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye.